Hello and welcome to Action on Cars. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about buying W211 E63 AMG, guys. By the end of this episode, you should have a good understanding of what to look out for when buying W211 E63 AMG and how to find a good deal, how to check out the car before buying it, what the common pitfalls might be. All of that is coming up in today's episode. So if you are in the market for one or just curious about these cars, stick till the end. Let's get started. Many of you have reached out with questions asking for buying advices, and I really appreciate that, guys. I'm not an expert by any means, but I do know a thing or two about W211 E63s, and I'm going to be sharing that with you today. So I'm going to be sharing my knowledge, my experience, and believe or not, I read a lot about this car. I'm very active on the forum, so I'm just here to share my knowledge. First, I'm going to tell you my own buying experience and how I picked this particular car. And then I'm going to be telling you a few things that you should be looking out for. Some of this you might already know, some you might not know. So in any case, let me know if I'm missing anything or you want to add something to the list of things that one should be looking out for when buying these cars, and drop those suggestions in the comments. Let's have a discussion and let's have a complete list of advices for potential buyers. Okay, let's get started. So before getting this car, I've always had Mercedes, but this is the first AMG I own. This car is also the first car I bought sight unseen, without seeing the car. So needless to say that I was really scared, especially because when you go online and you read about these cars, there are a lot of rumors, a lot of exaggerated information such as, oh my God, M156s blow their heads. Every other M156 suffers from head bolt issue, or cams fail left and right. All of that is an over-exaggerated information by the internet, and I hate to say this, I don't want to offend anyone, but most of those rumors or over-exaggeration, I guess, are caused either by E55 owners or by people who don't even own one of these. They don't own an E55, they don't own E63, and I say this from a personal experience. When I was buying this car, I was on forum asking people, and they were trying to scare me off of this car. But then after talking to them for a little bit, sometimes you come to realize that they don't even own a Mercedes. They're just on the forum to have fun. Anyway, so don't be too scared. Obviously do your research, but don't pay attention to anything anybody says, including to what I'm saying. I'm just telling you based on my experience and based on my own purchasing experience, and I bought a very good car in an excellent condition. So I guess my advice is worth 2 cents. This is the first car, like I said, I bought sight unseen. And this is the first time I buy a car sight unseen. The car was down in South Carolina, which on one hand is a good sign because, I don't like cars from New York or New Jersey because the roads are not that great. And over here in Northeast, we get a lot of snow and salt. South Carolina is down in the south, and so kind of things such as rust, etc. were not my concerns, although these cars are covered pretty much and treated pretty well with the anti-rust agents. So unlike W210s, W211s do not suffer from rust that much. I bought this car for over $20,000, okay? I know it was a little, maybe on the higher end of the range, but it only had 40,000 miles on it when I bought it, and it only had 2 owners. Actually 3 owners. I mean, Carfax says it had 3 owners, but in reality, let this plane go. So Carfax will say that this car had 3 owners, but the first 2 owners are the same person, and not even the same person. The first 2 owners are actually the dealership that had this car. So when I was looking at the history, the car, the first 2 owners were the dealership itself where this car was offered. I believe this car was a showroom car. it never was, it wasn't a test drive car, just to be clear. It was a showroom car. It was sitting inside the dealership for 3 years or so. And from the history, you could see that all they've been doing in that time frame, but they kept changing batteries or charging the batteries because the car was sitting, and miles did not go, like they didn't even like increase. So the car was just sitting. Anyway, and then somebody bought it, drove it for a little, and then I bought it. So another plane. And I pick up a phone, I call the dealership, and I say, hey, I'm actually from Massachusetts. I'm interested in this car, but I would like to really get it like inspected really well, get it checked out. At first, I got the Carfax from them. So that's the first thing you want to do. Make sure you get the Carfax. And in addition to Carfax, because Carfax will only give you information if a car has been serviced somewhere, you know, at a relatively like bigger size shop or a dealership, because smaller like Uncle Joe's car place on Main Street, they don't report to Carfax, and if the service or oil change has been done there, it will not be on the Carfax. But Carfax is definitely a good source of information as a starting point. And then I had a very good relationship with a service manager in one of the Mercedes-Benz dealerships around here, and you know, I asked him if he could give me a data card of a car. Data card is an internal document used by Mercedes-Benz, and it has like all the previous service history. Basically, it's more advanced version of a Carfax. And in there, I saw that the car has been, you know, maintained well. Oil has been changed every 5,000 miles, and that's very important, guys. Like, if you see from the service history that the oil has been changed every 10,000 miles, do not even like consider one. I mean, that's a very harsh statement, but seriously, often quality oil changes are the key for having your camshafts and lifters, etc., be in a good shape. And when I replace my head bolts, if you haven't seen that video, M156 head bolt replacement video, I'm gonna drop the link in the description below, and it's also gonna pop up on the screen. When I changed my head bolts, I saw that my cams, lifters, adjusters at 68,000, they looked brand new. Why? I think that's all thanks to the regular and good quality oil changes. So make sure you get as much information about the car as possible. Sometimes the dealerships may not be too like willing to share that information because of the personal, you know, like personal identifiable information concerns, etc. Now, you may not have like relationships at the dealerships, and you may not be able to get your hands on a you know, data card. But make sure you get the Carfax from the previous owner, as well as any documentation, any maintenance documentation, any receipts that the owner may have. Anyway, this video, by the way, just to be clear, this video is not going to be kind of like common issues type of video, because I've already covered it in my ownership update video that I'm gonna drop in the description, as well as it's gonna pop up on the screen. So make sure you watch that after you're done watching this video. Anyway, let's move on. Okay, now let's say you have looked at the Carfax and you have looked at the receipts or whatever the owner has, and it all looks good. So how do you now actually check the most recent, like the current state of the car? So the first thing you want to do is get a pre-purchase inspection. This is what I did. I actually had this car taken a look at or checked out like twice. So I called the dealership that had this car in South Carolina, and I asked them to take a car to somewhere where pre-purchase inspection have been done. You're gonna be like responsible for the pre-purchase inspection costs, and pre-purchase inspection usually costs around $150, no more than that usually. But when the results came, you know, arrived, I looked at it, and I was not satisfied with the way they checked it. I found another place specializing in German cars that had Mercedes computer. They knew Mercedeses, they knew BMW. So I made an arrangement with them and asked the dealer again to take the car there now, which they did. So I paid twice, but you know, it's worth, especially if you're buying car sight unseen, it's worth spending like $300 that I spent on pre-purchase inspection now than thousands later, right? They took it there and they had Mercedes computer, Star, or whatever, Mercedes diagnostics, and I asked them to go through it, make sure there are no codes, there are no recent stored codes, and all of that. So that's what you should be doing as well. Like, take it for a pre-purchase inspection and ask them to check for anything in the computer, anything that's air suspension related, electronics related. And it goes without saying that in addition to checking through the computer, they should put the car on a lift, make sure that the suspension looks good, there are no like excessive wear and tear. If there is, they should document it, and make sure that they check for any engine oil leaks, transmission oil leaks, differential oil leaks, etc. And make sure that when you arrange a pre-purchase inspection, you ask them to document it, so that when they give you a report, you can have a peace of mind and confidence that they've looked at these things. All right. So that's what they did, and the car came really clean. Okay, now at that point, my heart kind of like heartbeat started going down, and I was already liking the car. But I did not let my emotions to take over my brain, and this is what I did. So I asked the owner to start the car first thing in the morning. This dealership have gone through a lot with me, as you can tell. But the guy has a camera on, and he sits in the car and he shows me that the car is cold right now, right? So it's not like it's not warm. It's cold. It's first thing in the morning that they do, and they have the hood pop open. He starts the car while someone else is kind of like filming the engine area. And the reason I did this is because I wanted to listen for the engine. There should absolutely be no rattles, no ticking at cold start. So they started the car in the video, and I could say that the engine started smoothly, runs very smoothly. No, there's not like a crazy, I don't know, like rattles, like I said, or chain sound or anything like that. So if you are considering one of these cars and you are looking in person, you still should do that. You still should ask the owner to either come to their house or whatever first thing in the morning when the car is cold and start and listen to it yourself. Or if they're not willing to cooperate, ask them to, if they're not willing, like you coming to their house, ask them to do the same, like film it so that you hear no cam noises, etc. And the reason I bring this up is because, as you know, if the car has been poorly maintained, oil wasn't changed properly, it was running on low oil all the time, the cams and the cam adjusters may wear prematurely. And when that happens, when the car is started first thing in the morning while cold, you may hear like a rattling sound, chain sound for like a couple of seconds, and then it kind of like goes away. If that happens, then you have a bad cam adjusters. Not end of the world. There's like cam adjuster, pin flip, etc. That's a different story. I'm not going to go too much into it, but you can Google and watch videos from Tassos Moscatos on how to flip a pin inside a cam adjuster if you are having that issue. Anyway, there should be absolutely no engine or lifter ticking. If it ticks, and by ticking I mean like it should be pretty laudable, you know, it should be like a clock. It should be like tick, 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 tick. If that happens, then you may have premature lifter wear. It may be normal if the car has been sitting for a long time, more than a week, for example, or 2 weeks or whatever. In that case, because it has that bleeding mechanism and the oil kind of like all the oil is at the bottom of the engine. Now, I doubt that any owner will let you to do it unless you somehow prove to them that you are serious about buying it. But you can technically ask them to remove the valve covers and look at the cam lobes and lifters, inspect it, but that kind of like involves removing spark plugs, etc. So they may or may not let you to do that. Also, if you are concerned about head bolt failures, the way to test it, whether there's a leak or something, you know, would be by opening up the coolant tank. Only do it when the car is cold, okay? Please do not do it when it's hot because you may like burn yourself. So when the car is cold, open the coolant tank and make sure you don't smell any exhaust fumes. There should be nothing. If there is, then most likely, you know, exhaust is getting into the engine and the car may have a broken head bolt. You can also smell the exhaust gas. I know you may look a little weird like smelling an exhaust pipe, but you should not be smelling like any sweet smell. If it's sweet, like too sweet for an exhaust fume, then it might be coolant getting burned in the engine. Airmatic on all four corners. That's another thing. Like either ask them to film it or check yourself in the morning. The car is, you know, leveled on all four corners. No like side is like lower than other sides or some crazy things happen. Or when you start the car, you should not see the car like come back up. But keep in mind, there's a caveat there. If the car has been sitting for extensive duration of time, like a week, 2 weeks, and the owner doesn't drive it because they want to sell it or whatever, it may drop for about like inch and a half at maximum. That's normal because there's a pressure relief mechanism, and it may let go some of the pressure and the car may drop a little. So it can like come up a little bit, but only if the car has been sitting for a long duration of time. If you, you know, like while you are looking at the car and you're talking to the owner, and let's say the car has been sitting for like half an hour and you've been talking to the owner, and that like half an hour was enough for the car to drop off, that's not good. One of the Airmatics are leaking for sure. And during the pre-purchase inspection, I forgot to say, also ask the mechanics to check for Airmatic leaks, not only through the computer, but also by applying, I think they have like this soapy water or like spray or whatever, they spray on airbags, and you know, water and soap helps them to identify if there's an air leak. So get that checked as well. So Airmatic should not be sagging, it should be holding the car evenly. Next is the transmission. And the way to check transmission is this. First of all, obviously drive the car around. When you drive the car around, the transmission should be very smooth, like butter smooth, especially in comfort mode. Drive the car around and see if you can find any like hills, like go uphill, downhill. Don't go like crazy uphill. Go slowly and kind of like wait until the transmission has to downshift to go uphill. So be easy on an acceleration, and when it downshifts, it should be really smooth. There should be no clunking, nothing. Any of that may be a sign of bad valve body or conductor plate. And keep in mind that transmission takes a little bit longer to warm up. So if you are looking at one in winter times, just because your engine is at the operating temperature, it doesn't mean that the transmission is at the operating temperature. So drive the car for at least like, after the engine has reached its operating temperature, drive the car for at least another 10 minutes, and then you can, or 5 minutes, and then you can know that now your transmission is warm as well. When it is warm, park the car on an even surface, okay? Not like uphill, not downhill, just on even. Put your foot on brakes and go through gears. From park to rear, like rear, R to D, slowly, one by one. And as you go through them, or backwards, D to R to park, there should absolutely be no clunking, and you should not feel like as if the car kind of like moved under you. If that happens, that's a bad sign. I would also make sure that the transmission has been serviced. The transmission should be serviced, transmission fluid flush every 40,000 miles. So if the car is a high mileage one, let's say over than 100,000 miles, and the transmission was never serviced, is that a bad thing? It's not ideal. But if the transmission behaves normally, then it's most likely it's good, you know. On high mileage cars, I would say, like 150,000 miles, etc. I would say don't touch the transmission if it has never been serviced. But if the transmission has been serviced every 60,000 miles, every 40,000 miles, you should keep doing that. You should like continuously service it at every 40,000 miles. Okay, that's it about the transmission. If you have a panoramic sunroof, these cars, you know, unfortunately, like sometimes may suffer from panoramic sunroof making like a thumping sound over bumps. It doesn't apply to regular moonroofs like I have, but panoramic sunroofs may have some like welding issues and may make that sound as you go over the bumps. So go over the bumps, make sure that the panoramic sunroof is quiet. All the electronics, head unit may have some, you know, CD changer, etc. may have some issues. All the buttons, cooled seats, if you have them, make sure that they work. And in these cars, you know, you can extend the cushion, adjust side bolsters using the buttons, make sure that everything inflates and deflates just fine. The keyless entry, should work on all four corners. Like, you should be able to unlock or lock the car, unlock or lock the car. Very common issue, by the way, they tend to fail. I'm not saying that if any of them have failed, you should not buy the car, but these are like negotiation points, right? Power operated trunk, should be, if it has that option, I believe it was standard, but it should work like a charm. There should be no issues. And next, I would also check for Parktronics if the car has one. And the way to check Parktronics is by you sitting in the car while the car is running, and then asking the owner to put their hands on each of the sensors one by one, just like this. And as they do that, you should be able to hear like a beeping or like a signal inside the car, because the car thinks that it's approaching like an obstacle, right? And in order to check the rear ones, the transmission has to be in R. Put your foot on brake, don't run over the owner, but you are in reverse, foot on the brake, and the owner does this, to all the sensors, and you are in the car, you are hearing that all of them are working. And then to check the front ones, put the car in drive mode, transmission drive, foot on brake, and the owner does the same on the front, and you know that the front sensors work as well. And other things, like just do your check, just like you would do with any car. Go over bumps, make sure that there are no rattling in the interior, depending on what you like. I don't like when there are any rattles or squeaks in the interior. That would drive me nuts. So make sure it's solid, it feels sturdy. Steering should be feel really tight. But if there are any issues, ideally all of that should be discovered during your pre-purchase inspection. And if the car you are looking at has a Distronic Plus or adaptive cruise control, check for that to make sure it works. Yeah, and also obviously make sure that the rear sunshade, electronically operated one that's over here, works just fine. Also check the rear ones that are manual. You can pull them up. Make sure that they are working just fine. And I believe that's it, guys. Really, we talked about the engine, we talked about the transmission, we talked about the electronics, we talked about the importance of regular service intervals, especially for the engine and transmission. We talked about outside, exterior interiors. I might be missing something. If I've missed anything and you want to add it to the list of items people should be looking for, please drop those in the comments. Let's help each other. This is why I'm doing these videos. YouTube is my hobby, and this is what we are here for, to help each other, to build a community. If I missed anything, please drop them in the comment. I think myself and everyone else watching these videos will appreciate. That's it for today. I really hope that this video was informative. I really hope that you buy one of these, the last naturally aspirated, magnificent 6.2 liter engines. So I hope you get one and it serves you well and you enjoy it. Please like, share, and subscribe, because that helps this channel a lot. I'll see you in the future episodes.